So I'm going to do this on my page, just like you have your page. And we're going to set up our notes accordingly. So if I were you, I would have up the PDF page so that you can see what it is that I am writing and what I am using, because I'll have the book next to me. Hold on. I think it starts on page 1, I think is what the outline says, right? Let me pull up my outline. And then you'll also see that in the in Canvas, you'll see that I have an example of a page that I took. So, all right. Let me get situated. All right, alrighty, here we go. All right, so I'm going to start with my page, and it's going to be AMSCO, Unit 1, Part 1, pages 1 through 17. And then I'm going to go ahead, and I think for me, like this, the side margin, it's a little too small for what I want to do, so I'm going to draw across and I'm going to go in just a little bit. And if you are super like OCD, you can get a ruler out. I don't care if it's like super straight. You can do what you need to do for that. All right, so notice at the top of your notes page, like the outline that I gave you, you're expected to read the text and not just skim and search to find things. It's written conversationally, so follow along with the conversation. So it's not your typical textbook like a science textbook or a history textbook. It's written as a conversation with a professional, right? With a, actually the 3 people that wrote this, one of them was the head of AP Language for College Board. One of them is like a consultant, and then another one of them is a teacher in Kentucky. So they wrote this for teachers and for students especially, so like for you guys to understand how to work through it. So that's how we're going to read it. These must be handwritten. All of your notes must be handwritten. Nothing is to be typed, okay? Only handwritten. No complete sentences, so we're just going to bullet. So I'll show you how I do it, and then y'all can figure out like your way. No full paragraphs, no nothing, okay? All components of the outline must be completed on your notes. So for this first left side, we're going to do like section, title, and then any questions you may have. And then these are going to be our notes. So notice on your outline it says Unit 1 Overview, right? So I'm just going to start with the whatever is in my outline. You're going to put yours over there. And this is going to be pages 1 through 5. Notice on the outline there are activities in the book. And notice in the outline, highlighted in pink, it says you do not have to do the composing on your own, right? Composing your own or evaluating writing. So you don't have to do those parts. So before I go in, I'm going to look at what I'm looking for in those first 5 pages. So key points of the story and purpose of including the story, entering the conversation, developing positions, and then read Greta Thunberg's speech, summarize her main argument. So I'm going to see what I need to look for, and then I'm going to go read. Okay? So if you have your PDF page, I'm opening up to page 1. You're going to see my notes in here. Hold on. All right. Do I need to, are y'all all looking at it online so I don't have to show it up here? Okay. All right. So let me just show you a couple things. So Unit 1, there's 2 parts. Here's the overview, so you can see the subheadings. That's where your subheadings are going to be on the left. When we go to Part 1 questions, or when we go to the Part 1 notes, you'll see the same thing Part 1, rhetorical situation, and then you'll see essential question. And so that's what I'm going to write down as well. Like y'all have those notes that you have to write down as what is the essential question. And we'll work through that. So, all right. So Unit 1 says key points of the story and the purpose of including the story. So we'll start there. Unit 1 overview. In 2013, a white female executive for a large company boarded a plane in London for an 11-hour flight to South Africa. Before her plane took off, she tweeted what to her was a joke about AIDS that implied she wouldn't get the disease because she was white. While she was on the flight, she had no internet access, so she could not immediately see that social media exploded in response to her tweet, nor could she see her boss's tweet that we are taking appropriate action, implying that she had been fired. Her bosses saw an immediate need to step in and defend the company's public image even before talking to her. Okay, so there's the start of the story. Turn to your partner. We're not writing anything down. What's the key points of that story? Real quick, turn to your partner. What are the key points of that story? Do it. No, you can scoot over the end. She's going to scoot over because her partner's not today. All right. What are the key points? What are the key points of that story? Okay. Yes, you skipped a whole, like, if all we put in our notes is, she was fired, you're going to be like, who? So give me some key points leading up to that. Who's she? Okay. Ooh, can y'all see that? If I'm ever off the page or off screen, then y'all just have to let me. So white female exec tweeted offensive, and I'm going to put in quote, joke. Okay? Now what can we say? She hasn't been fired yet because she's still in the air. Do what? Okay. And what is the concern for the company? Yep. So no, like when you're taking your notes and I'm giving you like guidelines to go by, know that I don't want you to write every sentence, but we can't skip the key details, right? So if you go to she was fired and exec was fired, you have to act like I haven't read the notes, right? Or I haven't read the passage, right? All right. The executive ironically employed as an expert in corporate communications may have thought that her audience was her 170 followers on Twitter at the time, who very well might have found her comment amusing. But because of the viral spread of her tweet, thousands of people outside her circle saw it and condemned it. With the widening of her audience, the executive had stumbled into ongoing conversations about AIDS and race and money and fairness for which she had not prepared. She found herself engaged with others who were already in those conversations and who knew much more and took the subject much more seriously than she did. At that point, she entered the broader conversation, intentionally issuing an apology for being insensitive to this crisis, which does not discriminate by race, gender, or sexual orientation, but which terrifies us all uniformly. And to the millions of people living with the virus, I am ashamed. As she should be. Okay, so turn to your partner. Remember, the last time we said she got fired, and now we don't want to just jump to she issued an apology. What is the content that is in there? What's important that that conversation is pointing out in that body paragraph? Turn to your partner and talk.
Yeah, she thought it would be normal. At the time, it seems like a subject.
All right. What is the key? What are the key details? Did it start important conversations? Do what? Did it bring up conversations? So what I hear you say is that joke created conversations. Is that what happened? What did that joke do?
There was backlash, and then she got educated on.
Yeah. So what we want to look at is, one, the joke didn't take into account conversations that were already happening, right? And notice, honestly, how many of y'all have been taught to take notes, how to take notes? Middle school to high school. Okay. So this might be a little different, but notice you don't have to write out every single word, right? You can abbreviate it. These are for you. So they're for me, but your abbreviations are for you. So if you want to abbreviate, I can abbreviate quickly, right? Notice that I'm not writing full sentences. Okay, so the joke didn't take into account conversations that were already happening. Wait, say what you said again.
And there was backlash, and she got educated on.
Backlash because of her insensitivity. Okay. I still think it's funny her position was corporate communications. So she's in charge of her company's voice, right? Yeah. Not smart. Not smart. All right. That's good for me, right? That's good. So then I'm going to go into entering the conversation. Let me pull up my notes again. So in entering the conversation, notice that in your notes, that's one of the sub bullets. So for me, anything that is bolded in here, I'm just going to make little subheadings, right? Ongoing conversations are everywhere in every country, every family, every school, every business, and every community that faces any kind of challenge. Each of these conversations arises out of a unique situation. How to spend tax money, whether to get a dog, whether to shut down school in the face of contagious virus, whether to change an intersection to a roundabout. The words and ideas within these conversations have power to advance understanding. But as the example of the privileged executive illustrates, they can also set it back when used to diminish others. Reread that. Talk to your partner. What does the idea of entering the conversation mean? Reread that, talk to your partner, and figure out, what does entering the conversation mean? All right. So what does entering the conversation mean? What does that mean, to enter a conversation? Y'all are just talking to each other. what does entering the conversation mean?
Giving your opinion on conversation or being discussed.
Okay. What else?
Well, like how like different conversations and words like have different meanings and it can be influential both for good and for bad.
Okay. Say that again. Entering conversations means like I like the different meanings, like good or bad.
Yeah, it's influential both for good and bad.
Wait, let's see. Can be. The words and ideas within these conversations have power to advance understanding. So the goal, ultimately, of entering a conversation that is already happening is to do what? Advance understanding. So the goal think about that in terms of anything that is, and probably not, usually not your day-to-day conversations with friends or family or whatever, but when there is a conversation happening about something important, even controversial, book banning, right? Let's say there's a conversation, there are people that are having a conversation about banning certain books. And if you just enter into that conversation without having knowledge of that issue, are you furthering your knowledge? Say no. No, right? So when you enter into a conversation, the goal ultimately, again, conversations that are substantive, right? Not like, hey, where are we going to dinner tonight? Like, that's a little different. But when you enter into a conversation on a topic or an issue, the only way that you can contribute to it is if you have knowledge of it, right? So this executive had no understanding of the broader idea of the impact. She was stupid to not have the understanding, beside the point. But she had no understanding of the conversation around AIDS and race and the impact that it's having on the communities where she was going, right? Okay, so does that cover our bulleted points? Yes. And know in the beginning this is going to go a little bit slower just because, right, like we're just learning how to do this, but then let's read what's in the gray box, right? So this part right here. Philosopher and literary critic Kenneth Burke created a metaphor that describes arguments as an unending or enduring conversation. To endure means to last, right? To continue on. Imagine that you enter a parlor. A parlor is like a room, right? You come late. When you arrive, others have long preceded you, and they are engaged in a heated discussion, a discussion too heated for them to pause and tell you exactly what it is about. In fact, the discussion had already begun long before any of them got there, so that no one present is qualified to retrace for you all the steps that had gone before. You listen for a while until you decide that you have caught the tenor of the argument, the sound, right? Then you put in your or. What's an or? What's an or? An O-A-R. A what? Yeah, it's like, yes. Like you put your own boat, okay, suburban friends. When you're in a canoe or a boat, you have to row, right? So imagine the conversation is rowing along and you're just sitting in the boat, right? If you don't understand what's happening in the conversation, you're almost rowing backwards against the current, right? So when you're ready to jump in that conversation, that's when you put in your or. Okay. Now where did I go? Someone answers, you answer him, another comes to your defense, another aligns himself against you, to either the embarrassment or gratification of your opponent, depending upon the quality of your ally's assistance. However, the discussion is interminable. The hour grows late, you must depart, and you do depart with the discussion still vigorously in process. So I'm going to jot down like the metaphor. Metaphor is comparing something, right? So turn to your partner. What is the metaphor that is happening in this gray box? What represents what? Like they're in the parlor, they're in an oar, they have an oar. What represents what? Turn to your partner. Hey, you don't have enough room to get in, like on the side. Are you like, okay. Last year I had it like up against, so I didn't have those partnered together, but just didn't know if there was enough room for you to get in and out. If it ever gets too tight, let me know. All right, so what does the parlor represent? I saw you mouth it. Y'all, we're going to have to like talk to each other or y'all going to have to see me go crazy. And I'm already getting old. P.S. by the way, my birthday's August 22nd, so just a heads up. So I'll be even older. Okay, so what does the parlor represent? Okay, it is the boat, right? But what does that represent? Okay, yeah, the parlor is like the issue or the topic of a convo already happening. Ooh, can you see that already happening? Okay. What does the or represent? The what?
Like adding on to the conversation.
Okay, so you so ultimately, when you put your or into that discussion, what is your goal? To advance it. To further the argument. An argument we'll talk about, like argument doesn't always mean like volatile, right? But to further the argument means that there will be people that disagree with you, which is totally fine, right? But when you are disagreeing with somebody, you are furthering the argument. Your goal is not to get them to change to your side. Your goal is to get a better understanding of their position and them to have a better understanding of your position. Okay. Does that help you kind of start to outline, see like what my expectations of notes are? Okay. No full sentences. Notice that I'm like kind of coming in, like to the left is where something is happening, right? Like entering the conversation, and then I indent a little bit. That way when you study notes, and again, you probably won't have to study mine, but this works for science, for history, for whatever. This is a quick way for you to go back and find things. This is how like I took notes all through college, right? In my science classes, in my history classes, my English classes, all that. I took notes so that when I had to review, it was very quick. I could go to the subheadings and see. I leave this room for when I go back and I look over my notes again to add questions, to add definitions, to add anything that the professor, the teacher said, right? Some of y'all are very anal where you're like, I have to have different colors for all the things. You do you. I love it. It's fun to watch that, right? It's fun to see that. But this is what notes look like for me. This one. I sure can. Thanks. Lauren Matthews at the end of class. You can go to, where are you? Lauren Matthews. You go to Miss Mitchell. So I'll let you go like 5 minutes early. Okay. So this is the way that notes look for me. So notice what I did is I read first. I looked at what I had to write down. I read first. And then every paragraph or so I would stop. Okay? So notice, let's kind of further on. So notice the next part is developing positions. Notice that you have 3 words in bold, right? So here's your developing positions. Then you have these in bold. Those are things that I would write down, like if there's any bolded terms, those are definitions. And then this is just kind of telling you the layout of the unit. You don't have to worry about that. I do want you to read the Greta Thunberg piece, and notice that I do want you to summarize her main argument. Notice that there's a composing on your own. Notice my notes say that you don't have to do that part, right? And then evaluating writing, notice that my notes on the left in the pink say that you don't have to do that part, okay? Then, and the what do you know, you don't have to do that either, because that's on page 6. We're going from page 1 through 5 to 7. Then if you'll look at your notes for 7, or for part 1 where it says rhetorical situation, notice the essential question. That's right here. You want to write down the essential question. For me, the essential question is going to help you figure out what notes you need to take. So when you're reading something and you're like, I know she said to write like the impetus in there, but I don't know what. Go back to the essential question and go, okay, how is the essential question? How is this information right here answering the essential question? Those are the notes that you need to take. Okay, so I will let y'all start. Notice that down on, I've got to get you that yellow pages page for 2.3, but I'm guessing we probably won't even get there today. So Monday, I will have that for you. So you have the rest of class to start. You could probably get through the Greta Thunberg piece. No, on Monday, you'll have all the class to finish or to get as far as you can. It is due Tuesday when you walk in. Okay? I don't care if you write on the backs of papers, that whatever you want to do for you, these notes will go in your binder, so make sure you're not just ripping out pages. I don't care what colors you use. I don't care if you use pencil, because ultimately you're going to end up taking a picture of it and putting it into Canvas for me. Good? When we start working on our own, I do not mind if you have old school headphones to plug into your computer and listen to music. Good? Okay. All right. Y'all can work.